Good afternoon, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. Hitchhiking Yeti here. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to do some small town stuff today in the northeastern part of North Carolina. There are a couple towns here we're going to go venture out and see. And there is a lot of no-see-ums out here today, let me tell you. It is in November, and the bugs are just everywhere in this part of the state right now. Very warm today, but all in all, we're going to check out these towns. These towns definitely have a theme, and it is low-income areas. Median household income is very low here. One of the towns I'm going to show you today is supposedly the poorest town in North Carolina. We're going to see. Go up there, check it out, see what those towns look like, and just make a good day of it. Have a lot of fun. Thank you for hanging out with me. If you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get started. So we're going to start things off here today at the Franklinton Center at Bricks, which if you don't know what that is, I know I didn't, but we're going to learn together right here because these nice folks have a plaque right here that tells you what it is. And this here is the old brick school, established for blacks in 1895 through philanthropy of Miss Joseph K. Brick. Became the junior college in 1926 and it closed in 1933. Building stood here. So right here on this very property is where the brick school used to be. So before we leave the property, I thought I would show you this old structure right here. This here is one of the teachers' cottages. And this is pretty cool. And they used this from 1895 to 1925. So this here is a very historic building, really awesome, that is still standing. It's not in terrible shape, but they do got some things they might want to fix, like a hole in the wall right there, that window. But wow, man, this thing's got a lot of age to it. As you can hear a choo-choo in the background. All right. All that being said, let's head on to our first town. It's not too far up the road. And welcome to the town of Enfield, North Carolina, as you can see up there on the water tower partially. Very interesting place, that is for sure. Let's talk about the history a little bit. Enfield, North Carolina is a historic small town here in Halifax County, founded in 1740. As the oldest settlement in the county, and tying with Wilmington as one of the oldest in the state. Bath, North Carolina, if you did not know, is the oldest town, established in 1705. That is a pretty rad Pepsi sign right there. Kind of like that. But right here on my left, check out this tower that sits right beside the railroad track. That's pretty interesting. Which supposedly, this was a historic railroad crossing tower, also known as a signal or interlocking tower from the Atlantic Coastline Railroad era. I don't think I have ever seen anything quite like that. But you know what? That's why I travel, baby. That's why I get out and go do stuff. That's pretty cool. Check this place out. This is a very interesting structure, storefront. Long been closed and abandoned. It just says Enfield right there on the front wall. And maybe it was a clock store. I don't know. That's definitely what that design right there would insinuate. That was a clock maybe. But a fun fact about Enfield as we kind of walk down through this sidewalk here. Did you know Enfield was the world's largest raw peanut market? In the 1930s and the 50s, Enfield processed and shipped more raw peanuts than any other town on earth, over 100 million pounds annually. The smell of roasting peanuts still lingers on fall festival days. All right, this store right here is called the Unique Boutique. Thought it has some interesting things here. Some old school stuff, that is. Has an old record player right there. That old TV set. Right there's a radio. You know, people used to always call these TV set, but you only get one of them. You ever wonder that? And at the same store, we have this. Is that a water dispenser back in the day or something maybe? Or milk? I'm not really sure. If you know what the heck that is, definitely put in the comment section down below. I do think that this right here is like an antique ice chest. That's what I believe that is anyway. All right, I made my way down here to what they call the town square. This looks like one of those areas where it used to be a building or two, or maybe a really large building, and it has been removed, as you can see. This is quite a normal thing when traveling around to small towns. You'll see stuff like this, but they've actually taken the space and did a fantastic job. Got a little garden area, little sitting areas around here. Look at this back here. This is cool. How cute is this? This little porch, some rocking chairs. It's just a facade of a little home house, or like a little house in the woods or something. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So we've looked around Enfield a little bit. A lot of abandoned stuff here. So let's look at some of the income stats. So the income per capita here in Enfield, North Carolina is $13,657 per year. Think about that. Well below the average of North Carolina at $26,779 and the national at $29,829. So the median household income is $21,774, which is, you know, what, 60% below the North Carolina average? It's pretty wild to think about that. Unemployment rate here is 8.1%. So not a lot of jobs here in this area. And the next thing we gotta look at is the poverty rate. The poverty rate here in Enfield, North Carolina is 33.5%, which pretty much doubles the state of North Carolina and the national average at 15.1. So we have established that the median household income and the income per capita is very low. So does that really equate to a higher crime rate? No, not really. Because here in the town of Enfield, their crime rate is 1.4. 1.4 people total crime out of 1,000. That's not that bad. The North Carolina average is 2.4 and the national average is 2.2. So it's really not that bad. So even though they have, you know, some poverty level issues and income issues, it doesn't seem like it's really translating over to any kind of bad crime wave. Now the property crime is the biggest problem, which is at 1.2% out of 1,000. 1.2 people out of 1,000 commits a property crime. And that's still well under North Carolina at 2.0. And the nation is 1.9%. So it's not terrible. All right, as I take one more look at all these abandoned storefronts right here on this main road next to the railroad tracks. There's just some women down there, almost like having a little yard sale in front of that abandoned store. But other than that, there is no movement here at all. So all that being said, that's going to pretty much wrap it up for me here in Enfield, North Carolina. We're going to move on to our next town, which is supposedly the poorest town in the entire state of North Carolina. I'm talking about a little place called Scotland Neck. And look at that cotton field, which all the cotton has been removed. There's a little cotton left behind, but not a whole lot. And speaking of cotton fields, right there's some cotton. Look at all that cotton out there. That field is covered. Tell you one thing, anybody that wanted to just kind of live alone, away from a lot of people, and not have like a lot of neighbors, you could definitely do that here. There is just so much vast farmland. It's crazy. Some of these people probably live a half a mile or a quarter mile from their neighbors. All right, I'm making my way into Scotland Neck. And wow, that's a lot of lawnmowers that this man has. A lot of lawnmowers. He must be a lawnmower repairman, I would imagine. And some of these homes through here are pretty rough. That old tin roof on that one. Look at this place. That's like completely condemned. trees are just taking over. Right here is another home. The vines have just tried to take over. Even the front porch right here is just drooping and kind of caving in right there. And right there is another home, which I bet at one time was very nice, but it's just kind of rotting away now. All right, just wanted to drive around the community a little bit before we went into the downtown area, so let's go ahead and continue on downtown now and check out what the downtown looks like. All right, I've made it to the town of Scotland Neck, North Carolina. Very interesting location because look how wide the main thoroughfare is. You actually have people down there that actually park in the middle of the road and on the side of the street, all the way down through there. You see those spaces right there. As you can see, the Scotland Neck water tower right there. We're actually going to walk down this road. I think this is called 11th Avenue. We're going to walk down this way because there's a structure down here we got to go look at. But the meanwhile, while we walk, let's talk about a little bit about the history. So in 1722, a colony of Scots Highlanders led by Lord Nairn settled in the neck of the Roanoke River, giving the area its name and marking one of the earliest Scottish communities in the region. The town evolved from early villages like Clarksville, Greenwood, officially incorporated on February 21st, 1867, with wide avenues and a tree-lined median on Main Street designed shortly thereafter. So as you probably noticed driving in, I was showing you a lot of cotton fields. That is still a very big thing here in this area, a lot of cotton farmers here. But back in the late 1800s, it was a big part of the economic growth to this community. And then in 1881 and 1883, Wilmington and the Weldon Railroad branch actually turned this into like a manufacturing hub for the surrounding farms. So this area right here made a lot of money because of the cotton farming, and then the railroad to help ship the cotton, you know, in and around the state of North Carolina and even up into Virginia. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the population here in Scotland Neck. There's about 1,770 folks that live here in the area. And the median age for Scotland Neck is 51.3. That's a little on the high side. This is a pretty old community. Oh my goodness. This property right here is awesome. First of all, look at the lighting out here at the beginning of this walkway. Are you ready for complete awesomeness? Boom shakalaka. Look at this house. Oh my goodness. That is amazing. That is like so breathtaking. Just the architecture, the design. Holy smokes. Look at that. This place is unbelievable. This might be one of the most beautiful houses I have ever seen. And I know in a way it's rough, you know, it needs a new paint job and etc. But this is unbelievable. Look up there on the roof. I hope the video does it. You can just see the designs on the roof itself up there on that spire. That reminds me of like old school Germany a little bit. So much. My wife, when she sees this, I'm thinking she's gonna agree. That reminds me of old school Germany. Yeah, that is one awesome house. That's beautiful. I like his sign right here. Welcome to Scotland Neck, North Carolina, incorporated 1867. They even got the degrees, the grid of where it's actually located, longitude, latitude. 170 miles to Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, 294 miles to Grandfather Mountain. Hashtag in the neck. And check out the cool mural they got here. That is really, really nice. All right, so let's jump into some numbers here. So far I'm walking around town in Scotland Neck and it doesn't seem it doesn't seem like the poorest town. Everybody here seems like they're just hustling and bustling with everyday small town life. You know, there's everything's not abandoned that I've seen up to this point. So let's jump into some numbers. So Scotland Neck Income per capita is pretty low, $18,414, which that compares to North Carolina's $26,779 and national at $29,829. And then the median household income is where it's really bad, $15,404 per year. Think about that. The average for North Carolina is $48,256, and the national average is $55,322. So right there, that median household income is where they get the title here of the poorest town in North Carolina. That's where it comes from. And that is pretty frightening to think about it, especially when you break that down, you know, per week. $15,404 would be the equivalent of living on $296.23 per week. Think about that. As high as groceries are, gas, rent, people's house payments, that could be tough. Okay, I made my way over here to McDowell's Pharmacy. It says drink Coca-Cola. Big part of the community this pharmacy is right here. McDowell's Pharmacy is an historic, family-owned, independent pharmacy here in Scotland Neck, North Carolina, and it has been operating continuously since 1901. That is quite the feat in this day and time. Still have quite a few Halloween decor up, even though we are well into the month of November now. You can kind of look inside and see the pharmacy. But yeah, really cool place. Pretty neat. So some of you historians out there might know exactly what this is. Yours truly did not. I actually had to look it up. This machine is an antique bookbinding machine made by the F.P. Roseback Company of Benton Harbor, Michigan. As you can see, it says it right there. The Roseback Company was established in the 1800s and become well known for manufacturing bookbinding, trimming, and other equipment used in print shops and things of that nature. The patent date is August 7th, 1889, which is right there. Right there is the patent date. So that is quite a relic right here on the sidewalk in Scotland Neck. Okay, I made my way over here on East 10th Street now. Seen some really old buildings back here that really caught my attention. And this one especially. This is a gallery right now, but they have these little signs up here. It gives you a little bit of history about what this used to be. Dr. J.P. Wimberly Office / Hotel, Lawrence, 1903. I knew it was old. Just noticed the block work on this place. Knew it has some age to it, that's for sure. And right next door is another quite old looking building. This brick building right here, which is Attorneys at Law now. So I'll walk over here and see what kind of little information we have about this one. And this here is the old Telephone Exchange building from 1912. Part of the historic district. And something I just noticed on the sign, that there is the bank. That's what that graphic right there is. And that is the next building over, which is this defunct looking building is the bank. Pretty creepy looking. But it looks a little bit better on the street side. Let's go around here to the main street and take a look at it. I'm on the corner of East 10th Street and Main Street. Right down there is the other historic buildings that we just looked at. And this right here is indeed the Scotland Neck Bank, which was constructed in 1914. It's a really amazing looking, awesome structure. It even reads the word or the name Scotland Neck Bank right up there on that cement. And check that out up there. Is that a window, you think? Or is that where the CEO of the bank actually steps out and says, hey, I got your money, you know? They constructed this bank in 1914 due to the cotton boom. So that's when this all birthed forward, right here in the middle of town. All right, my friends, we are starting to wrap up the video today, but we're not going to end it without me sharing one more fun fact with you. So Scotland Neck has an event that happened called the Bird Invasion of '69. That alone is a great title to something. This is going to be a fun story. So in spring of 1969, Scotland Neck became ground zero for a massive flock invasion of blackbirds and cowbirds. It was migrating from Canada coming south. Millions strong by the winter. These birds like flocked to the rooftops, the trees, even the local diner here, it was called the Freeze, which drew tourists, and it was just a feathered chaos of mess. Locals banged on pots, they lit fireworks to scare off the birds, but the birds like stuck around like an uninvited party guest. That happened right here. Could you imagine that? I could just see the old timers out there banging on pots. My grandma used to do that stuff. When crows would come in the yard, she'd get out there with a pot and be banging on, like, get away from my garden, get away from this, you know, raising all kinds of cane. My little old grandma, sweet as sugar, but boy, if you got out there and messed around with her garden, she turned into a different human being. And right here, as I look at this old service station that's abandoned now, I think we're going to wrap up our video now. I think I'm all done. I've had a great day, got to see these towns, check them out. I know economically these towns have struggled over the years, but all in all, they're really nice places. Felt really safe here. Crime rates are lower than the national average and the average of North Carolina, so I think that says a lot about these communities. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, friends, I am the Hitchhiking Yeti, and I will see you in my next adventure. It's time to go because the no-see-ums are out. Y'all probably don't see them, but man, there's like little bugs floating around. They love the temperature. They love the warm temperatures today. By the way, I think I overdressed. I'm kind of hot. Really, I got this Kiss shirt on and I got pants on. As you can see, I got jeans on today. Probably could have got away with shorts, but if I would have worn the shorts, it would have been windy and that would have changed the whole game. What can you do? All right, y'all. Y'all stay safe. I hope to see you all again soon. So long from Scotland Neck, North Carolina. This was a good one today.